My boss asked me, what's the fastest way and what's the best way to get conversion from a lead to a sold car? Is it answering and calling them back when they put the online lead in, or is it doing it all by email? Well, you know what I said, phone. We're going to connect with people. And he said, prove it. And so I put together a small group of 40 people out of the contact center. This side 20, all they did was email. This side, all they did was call. And we had a room with whiteboards on all four sides. And the business analytic guy would come in every day, put all the stats up, and the agents would come in too. And we'd stand there and walk around this room trying to see, what's better, calling them or doing it by email. And the email won. It was better. The conversion rate, when we saw who the sales cycle and who actually purchased, it was email. And I said, I don't believe it. It goes against everything I believe in. So I picked another 40 people. Actually, I had the finance guy, the analyst, look at tenure, age, education, if they had car center, auto experience, all these differentials. And he came up with 2 exact teams. And I pulled a desk and put it in the middle of the contact center. And I had piggyback cords going to every single of those 40 agents, 20 on each side. And I would run around all day listening to the one here and running over here and looking for their emails. And at the end of a 4-week period, there was no difference.
Hey, contact center customer experience friends, welcome back to another episode of Contact Center Journeys. I'm super excited to be bringing on my guest, Vicki Brackett, who is the author of the Leadership Toolbox and the Chief Knowledge Officer of Knowledgely. Welcome to the pod, Vicki.
Oh, welcome to you too, Fred. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. And this is take 2, by the way, just for the audience. We did one a long time ago and never got published. And here we are. We're going to do it a second time. So as always, the intent of Contact Center Journeys is to inspire the next generation of CX and contact center professionals through sharing the stories of those that came up in the industry. We want to change the narrative that contact center and customer service jobs have no future. We've all personally met entrepreneurs, executives, technology people in our space that started as agents on the phone or junior level leaders and worked their way up. And we really want to celebrate those stories. There are never any sales pitches on Contact Center Journeys. Content is free. Use the audience, use it however you want. You want to share it out to your teams. Please feel free. All we ask, tag us when you share it out on social media. And also subscribe and follow, Vicki, any of our members, myself, follow us on LinkedIn and YouTube. So everybody gets a little bit of an intro. For some background, Vicki is a pioneer in the work at home environment and recognized as a thought leader, subject matter expert on work at home contact center operations, employee engagement, and leadership development. She has written for or been interviewed by Fast Company, Fortune, Forbes, CFO Magazine, CEO World, and a host of other publications. Vicki's the author, again, of the Leadership Toolbox, Manage Less, Achieve More. She is a frequent speaker on leadership, contact center operations, knowledge management driven by AI at industry events and on podcasts. Certified by the Knowledge Management Institute, Vicki is the current Chief Knowledge Officer of Knowledgely, where she and her team help contact centers realign their knowledge-based strategy to mitigate risk, decrease cost, increase productivity, all while enhancing the employee and the customer experience. So without further ado, Vicki, talk to us. Tell me, how'd you get into this crazy space?
Well, it is crazy. None of us plan to be in this space. My journey's very different than probably most people that you would talk to. My original out of the gate, out of college, was in sales and sales management. And then Many years later, I was at a very high stress job, and my mother went to the library and got a book on resumes and then looked at all the plaques and all the awards that I'd won because I gave them to her. She had them up on the family room wall, and she put together a resume, and she found an ad in the Sacramento Bee that said Director of Training, Contacts Call Center Experience Preferred, and had a fax number. So I'm aging myself a bit. And she sent this resume. And the only thing that was right about the resume was the name of the companies and my name, address, phone number, and email address. That was it. Everything else was wrong. And I looked at it and think, oh my God, Mom. And I said, oh, thank you, Mom. Thank you so much. I appreciate it, because no one's going to call. But they called. And she said to me, well, what's a call center? And I'm like, I don't know. And this was obviously before everyone was Googling everything. And so I went to this interview, and it was a panel interview. And the CEO was doing 3 groups of 20 people each. And I'm looking around the room, and these people have these stacks of manuals from Verizon. Bank of America had a 2,000-seat call center in Sacramento at one time. Pat Bell. I mean, just these big companies. And I'm thinking, gosh, I train on 3x5 cars. I mean, it was like, the woman talked. I asked one question, and they gave us a tour. And I'd never seen a call center. I'd never seen all these cubicles, right? And I was a great experience. I went home, and they called back. And so I went back for a second interview, and I walked into a room with 21 people in a U-shaped, the tables were in a U-shape with a chair at the opening of the U with no desk. And they interviewed me for 5 hours. Now, the challenge that they had was the CEO wanted to change her BPO from customer service to sales, because she felt she could charge more. So she was looking for someone to change their culture, and she was looking for a sales manager, a leader. And I'm very outgoing, and I don't know how I got the second interview, but I did. And I remember sitting in this chair looking up and saying, is there a drip? Is this torture or whatever? Because there's 21 people around these U-shaped desks. I moved the chair out of the way. I got up on the whiteboard and just started explaining basic psychology of people and how to drive people. And we talked a little bit about their challenges. And 5 hours later, I left. Long story short, I got the job. And we took their 600-seat contact center from customer service to sales. I put an upsell program together. And we ended up actually helping our clients with their marketing, with their infomercials, with their marketing strategy to drive phone calls into our contact center. And agents went from making $1 to $4 a week in upsell money to sometimes $100, $200, or $300 a week. And so way more in upsells than they were making on their hourly wage, which was minimum wage at the time. So that sort of got me my start. I fell in love with the industry. But a funny story, and I'll just quickly tell you this. The CEO couldn't go to a Chamber of Commerce mixer, and she asked me to go. And I was wearing the little name badge, with the name of the company. And a guy from B of A comes up, and he says to me, oh, I've heard about your contact center. What's your ASA? And I didn't even know what that meant. I knew nothing about contact centers, nothing. I didn't even know there was reporting, because there was no reporting at the call center that I worked at. Crazy, other than absent, the attendance. So I said, oh, industry standard. And then he asked a bunch of questions. And the next day I went back, and I said to the CEO, oh, man, you need to get someone in here that knows what they're doing. I know how to sell, and I know how to train, and I can lead, but I know nothing about contact centers. She said, I'll send you to school. So I went to the AT&T Call Center University, and she said, there's expert, intermediate, and beginner. Well, I was never going to admit that I was a beginner and be in a room. I would be too embarrassed. So I said I was intermediate. When I got in there, and they started doing introductions, and Visa, the state of California, big companies were in there. And I'm thinking, I looked at the manual. I didn't understand any of the words. I looked at the glossary. There was no glossary of terms. I guess I'm supposed to know all this. And I'm thinking to myself, oh my gosh, I should have taken the preschool one. I got through the class, went back, called the guy at B of A and said, look, there's these reports, and there's this room with boxes and wires and this keyboard, and I don't know what to do. And I said, I don't know anything about the business. And he said, you could have fooled me. You sounded great. So he and his assistant director came out, and they were managing 2,000 people. They spent the day
Yeah.
with me, got everything set up in the server room, ran reports, got the red pencil, marked at what I need to look at. And I was like, really? I mean, I can tell how long they've been talking and how long their hold is. Oh my gosh, I thought I had, reached the mother lode. And so that's how I got my start. And then I just started working with other contact centers and basically doing turnarounds. And that's what I did for over 20 years. I've done a few startups. I've owned my own BPO as well. We were acquired in 2020. But mostly I've been doing turnarounds and doing them rapidly in 90 to 120 days when companies were just bleeding money off their bottom line. So
That's crazy. Okay. So
but
there's a
you're normal.
lot in between there, that we'll dive into. But first of all, I'm curious. Do you remember what system you were running back then? Was it like EIS, ETS? I know it
It
was
was a
green screen.
via phones.
It was in a Avaya phone.
It was a
Okay.
via phone, yes. That and we had, I don't know the rest of the technology. I don't even remember that far back, and I wouldn't have even known what it really was back then. I really didn't know much. I mean, except people. And now I realize, many years later that it's the people leadership, right? You can hire people with contact center experience or analytics or HR or any of the other things you need in a contact center. But leading people, I think that's the key. It's inspiring and
Yeah.
motivating, learning how to touch their souls so that they want to come to work and do the best
Yeah.
job.
Yeah. Absolutely. So, you got your start. You dove in. You had some great people volunteer, which I found in my history in this industry. I the same thing. If you're really just willing to ask, there are plenty of people out there that'll help. Yeah, it's just the way we are in this space. In this practice. But once you got done with that, what was your first? How long did you spend there total?
I was there a
Yeah.
year. Actually, my dad had a heart transplant, and he was giving not very long. I mean, he had the new heart for about 7 years, and there were some complications. And so I knew he had a short period of time. This woman paid me for 6 months, including my health insurance, because of what I did for her company while I went and took care of my dad. And then he died 4.5 months later.
Well, that's amazing
Yeah,
that she took care of you. I mean, that
she did.
I,
Wonderful lady.
that's one of the things I suppose we could talk about is the change in the way that companies, treat their employees in general. I mean, that's always something I think a lot about. Because I spent a lot of time. I used to be a really big Jack Welch fan. And but as you mature in leadership and you begin to kind of be able to read between the lines and recognize, the nuance to it. He may have been the first one to really build leadership training into large corporations, but he also created an environment where the layoff, the top 10 stay, get
Yeah.
moved up, and the bottom 10 get moved out. And that culture shift, since the 80s has really changed the way people lead. But anyways, let's get back to your story. So you finished there. You took care of your dad, and at that point, what was your next step? Do you remember the center that you went into after that?
Well, actually, I didn't. I went to work for Manpower. I was
Oh,
approached by the CEO to come in, and he was looking to change culture inside his organization. It was the fifth largest franchise in the world. And he wanted to make some changes and he wanted fresh set of eyes. And I said, I don't have any staffing experience. And so he said he didn't care. He wanted my leadership. So I went in and was able to look at things with a fresh set of eyes. We took a district that was making actually in the hole and moved them to double digit net profit. And we did that in 4 months. They just
nice.
needed a fresh set of eyes. And then I started helping with the other divisions, and I started the call center symposium in Sacramento way back when with a lot of the other bigger brands. So I didn't really go into this. I didn't manage another center. From there, I did. I went into and ran the first online automobile dealership in the world. Paul Allen, the co-founder of Microsoft, put up the money for imotors.com, and I went in with a bunch of car guys who weren't customer service savvy, and bad words were coming out of their mouth, and they didn't even have headsets. And I built an organization that was very customer centric. And we used to transfer in the car guys to give the information because the information online through a lot of sources really wasn't complete. People would call in
Right.
and Fred, they would ask for like, where are the, the airbags on a BMW, and whatever model. And, we didn't know. We were customer service people. So we'd had databases that we looked into, but we also transferred in the car guys. It was very interesting because this is where I think we are missing in today's industry. My boss asked me, what's the fastest way and what's the best way to get conversion from a lead to a sold car? Is it answering and calling them back when they put the online lead in, or is it doing it all by email? Well, you know what I said, phone. We're going to connect with people. And he
Yeah.
said, prove it. And so I put together a small group of 40 people out of the contact center. This side 20, all they did was email. This side, all they did was call. And we had a room with whiteboards on all four sides. And the business analytic guy would come in every day, put all the stats up, and the agents would come in too. And we'd stand there and walk around this room trying to see, what's better, calling them or doing it by email. And the email won. It was better. The conversion rate, when we saw who the sales cycle and who actually purchased, it was email. And I said, I don't believe it. It goes against everything I believe in. So I picked another 40 people. Actually, I had the finance guy, the analyst, look at tenure, age, education, if they had auto experience, all these differentials. And he came up with two exact teams. And I pulled a desk and put it in the middle of the contact center. And I had piggyback cords going to every single of those 40 agents, 20 on each side. And I would run around all day listening to the one here and running over here and looking for their emails. And at the end of a 4-week period, there was no difference at all between email and phone. We looked at everything, and people that way better than I am on analytics came in, and we had a team of these super guys that did a great job. And so I went into my boss and I said, there's no difference. I can't believe it. And he said, so what are you going to do? And I said, we're emailing because we can email so much faster, right? Are you kidding? And our conversions went up and we were breaking records, 200, 300, 400% increases in sales of automobiles every month. And it was interesting. And here's what he told me. And this has changed my career. This has helped me do turnarounds in businesses all over the world. He said to me, Vicki, don't ever assume anything. Look at the data, put your preconceived notions out of the way, and look at it with a fresh set of eyes. And if you can't do it yourself, then you bring people in that can look at it with a fresh set of eyes and you figure it out. And I've never forgotten that. And so that's how I lead. That's how I do turnarounds. That's how we consult at Knowledge Lead today is basically just going with a fresh set of eyes. It's like coming into an organization you don't know anything about. We know the nuts and bolts, right? We know how contact centers work. But when you go in, Fred, you're going to look at it with a totally fresh set of eyes. And that's what I do. And so a lot of times it's even if you don't even have industry experience. I know some of us, we hang our hats. I have healthcare. I have finance. I have e-commerce. Yeah, but are you prejudiced, right? Are you going in with a fresh set of eyes, or are you going in with what I call rose-colored glasses? So you're seeing everything through your vision and not looking at the data. And a lot of contact centers today do not have enough data. And they've got it, but they haven't pulled all that information out to tell the story. Do you find the
Yeah,
same thing with Cloud Tech
oh
Gurus?
yeah, absolutely. I mean, the way I did turnarounds, I mean, it was all about data. I mean, in the end, especially in sales centers, it's so easy. Conversion rates, talk times. If somebody's got good talk times, has great conversations, has decent QA scores, but doesn't close deals, work on their closing techniques. I mean, it's all data. I mean, it all tells you a story. It's just, do you have visibility to the data, and do you see through that data to the actual story and things you need to do with it? But yeah, I mean, that's still true today, which is funny because now we're cloud 2.0 AI
Yeah.
world. There is more data available than ever, and it's just going to continue to proliferate because what people fail to realize is every single conversational bot, every single analytic tool, there's 10 times the metadata than we ever had with humans interacting in the old school CCAS platforms. So the world, it's always been about the data. I mean, that's really what it all comes down to. And yeah, I mean, if you can't first principles think through, like you said, without any bias, without any of your preconceived notions that we all have. I mean, that's human nature, right? I mean, but that's the difference between the people who can do something like that and the people who can't is, you recognize those biases, and you set them aside, and you analyze things just first principles based, what's the data say? Hey, it may completely conflict. See, and I would have that exact scenario. I would have thought that, well trained salespeople could definitely, especially back then, outsell email. You just, yeah, that's absolutely. Um,
And there's another piece I think we're missing, Fred, and I'd be interesting in hearing your thoughts on this. I think it
mhm,
takes leadership courage to not make
yeah,
those numbers sound the way we want them to be. Right. We don't want anyone saying, well, we've got so many gaps in customer service and Vicky's leading it and it must be awful. Right. It's having the courage to be able to come to the table and say, these are our gaps and here's what we need to fix them. And
yeah,
stand up and have courage to go the distance. The other piece is, and you may think I'm wrong with this. I don't believe that customer service leaders truly have a seat at the table
no,
because
no,
we're
I,
constantly bombarded with IT and with marketing and people and procurement, finance, stopping us from trying to drive what we need to drive. We have all this data, right, to give them all kinds of information. So it takes
yeah,
courage and it takes a seat at that table. And I don't think we spend enough time cultivating that to
yeah,
make sure that we do have a seat at the table. And I know that from my personal experience, I don't think I could have done the turnarounds that I have led without having that seat at the table and spending a lot of time outside my department building those relationships. So when I'm not out on the golf course and the CIO is or the CFO is, they're talking my story and what I need
yeah,
because they've been in on it from the beginning.
yeah. Absolutely. I mean, every time I see an organization, that's spending countless dollars on sales, marketing, to try to drive the front end of the funnel, you can then dive in the back end and see what they're spending on the service support side. It's not even close. I mean, and if you look at, I mean, I'm a software guy, right? So multiples define value in a software, and if you look at sales and Martech and the multiples that they get versus the contact center customer experience tech, it's again, because people will always find budget for top of the funnel, top of the funnel cycles versus supporting the customers. I've been a big, yeah. I mean, you and I are on the same page. I truly believe that 99% of the companies out there, the C level will talk about customers being the differentiator in their experience. All you have to do is dive back into the contact center and see that's not the case. Because if it was, they would get them the tools and the resources and the data and insights. How many contact centers have you gone into that actually have data analysts and scientists? Working on constantly trying to improve the insights and give the stories to the leaders, the floor leaders, right? I mean, because you and I know we ran centers. It's the floor leaders that make the difference.
That's right.
The directors, the VPs, it's our job to build the culture and manage the culture of the center. But it's the floor people that make stuff happen. It's the manager and supervisor and team leads, QA. It's the other teams that do. So yeah, I'm on the same page. We haven't had a seat at the table truly, for since I've been in the industry for over 30 years. We've just been another cog in in the machine.
Well, there's things that CX leaders can do to get a seat at the table. And it's
Absolutely.
basically, putting themselves in other people's shoes and helping other departments by giving them recognition, by helping them with projects, by just even name dropping. I mean, there's so many techniques. I mean, we spend all this time in networking, or we spend time, going to school, and we're all certified. But how many people really spend that time building and expanding that sphere of influence so they can get at the seat at the table and drive transformational change? Because that's what needs to happen in our industry, Fred. And you see that every day in your job. We don't
Yeah.
have the contact centers don't have the right tools. We've got people operating in silos, and you can't operate in silos. So a CX leader literally can bring people together from all those other departments with some good skills, new skills that can help them raise their visibility, help expand their sphere of influence, and help their career. That's what they really
Yeah.
want.
Yeah. Well, and in the end, no one's ever sat down and taught them that the C-suite doesn't care about, NPS. I mean, they may say they do, and they don't talk in that language. They talk in, what have you done from a revenue perspective? What have you done to reduce churn? Things that the executive suite cares about. The contact center leaders are never taught those things. They don't know how to speak executive language. You shouldn't be going in talking about, with your board, or doing an executive presentation about about CX KPIs. You should be talking about it how does this impact our customers? Hey, because of our focus, we were able to improve, reduce churn by 5%, which equals X million. That's what an executive, you want to get a CFO to give you budget. I mean, that's what they care about. They don't care about what you have to say about CSAT or NPS. They really don't. I mean, because they don't live our world, right? I mean, they talk the language of money and outcomes, and that's it's where the big gap is. That's why people like you out there teaching the audit, the leaders out there today about this stuff is so critical. Um, yeah. So I'm gonna pull us back to your journey. All right. So, you've gone in, you help them get their business back together. Significantly improve some regions, and but you came back to the contact center and actually running some of them.
Yeah.
That's where the book came from. I remember a lot of pieces were specifically about a center you were really, again, fixing.
Absolutely. So after that particular position, I had decided that I didn't want to manage anymore. And I was approached by a company, a career services company, the largest in the country at the time, if I would want to come in and manage their West Coast operations. And I said, no, I didn't want to do it. Then they came back and said, well, we want to go virtual. This is 2001. We want to go virtual, and we need someone to come in and figure out how to sell services virtually. We can't figure it out. Will you come? So I said, sure, but I don't want to manage any people. They said, okay. So they flew me to Denver, and I interviewed with this company. I was the only woman salesperson in the company. In fact, the CEO turned his back to me and would not talk with me. But the first month, I broke rookie records, made over $15,000 in commissions, and I got a phone call. Dear, he called me. Hello, dear. How did you do that? Well, I didn't know how I did it. I just was using my emotional intelligence. I was listening to people. I was asking questions. I really didn't know what I was doing. I did have a great mentor, and I really had
Mhm.
never run large contact centers yet in large companies. So they were mostly mid-sized companies. So I didn't have that big firm experience. So when, a CFO that was looking for a new job would come, and he was from a Fortune 10 company, I didn't have anything in common with him, but I learned. And so by just asking questions and using my emotional intelligence, I was able to sell and start breaking records and making money. Some months I was making $35,000 a month in commissions. And so then all of a sudden, it's like people started asking me for help. And now I'm done carrying the case for 6 months. Now I want to help people, right? So I'm back into management.
Yeah.
Unofficially, I'm helping all these people virtually. They don't have contact center telephony. Everyone's in their home. There's no training program. Fast forward a couple of years, I moved to corporate. We build multiple hundreds of virtual agents, all on 100% commission, though we did have benefits, healthcare and profit sharing and all of that. And then I built a brick and mortar contact center in Denver when I became a member of the senior management team. I became a partner of the company. I was there for 4.5 years. Yahoo came in and wanted to purchase the company. So it was a great environment, really getting my feet wet in virtual. Here's what I learned. I could do it, and I'm great at selling virtually, but I couldn't teach it because I didn't understand. Fast forward a number of years, I've gone and I've done education contact centers. I've done e-commerce. I've done a lot of different contact centers. And one day I get a call. I'm living in Denver, Colorado, and Volt Services calls me, and a guy says to me, I have a problem. Your name was given to me. I have a 300-seat brick and mortar. We're a BPO. Apple's our client. They're going to close us down in 2 weeks. If I don't get someone in there, your name was given to me. Will you come? And I was like, why would I do that? He said, because I've checked you out and you care about people, and 300 people are going to lose their job. And I know you'll come talk to me because you won't let that happen. I said, okay. So I drove to Colorado Springs, about 30 minutes from where I was living in Parker, Colorado. And I met with Kurt and liked him. Flip-flops, long beard, long hair. And I'm like, okay. And he said, look, we're going to move this person out. And so I said, I didn't like the comp. They called Apple. I wanted to be paid on performance. And they were number 14 out of 16 iPhone centers. So this was in 2001, before it was iOS. And long story short, I went. And in 3.5 weeks, we went from number 14 out of 16 iPhone centers to number 1. And that I came in a few weeks before Thanksgiving. And they shut the center because it was just open for the holidays at the end of January. And the exciting part of it was that they came into my center, interviewed my people, and chose the top 50 agents that they liked, along with 2 of my supervisors. And those became Apple employees, and they launched iPhone Virtual for Apple. And a lot of them are still there, and they've moved up in their journey with Apple. So that's why I got my start with Apple. I've consulted with and worked with other BPOs that are part of the Apple family. I understand their culture. I've been inside their headquarters and down in AppleCare headquarters down in Austin. I have a lot of colleagues that are still working there and some that have retired. But it was a great ride. And then in 2010, I went to work for a $6 billion company and turned around their virtual environment and took them from losing $4 million in their first 2 months to a multi-million-dollar bottom line. And that's where I figured out in 2010, that's when I figured out what the secret was to virtual. And that's why I've been able to duplicate it since 2010.
Oh, what's the secret?
The secret is very simple. We like brick and mortar because of the emotions that it makes us feel. We feel connected.
Yeah.
We like being in person. We like having the muffin lady and the taco truck and all of these ice cream socials, right? We love all this. We have to duplicate the feelings inside of a virtual environment. And so I learned how to do that because I had no choice. It was a 100% remote environment with people and a company that had no remote experience whatsoever. I was the only one. So that's what happened. And I just nipped and tucked, and we became a force to be reckoned with, Apple's largest provider of work at home. And we were the go-to company for them to come to. We helped them with a lot of their processes. It's been great to be associated with Apple. They're a great organization, but that's where I perfected my craft. That's where the book comes from. All those tools that are in there, the first 14 tools are literally what I use to run organizations. And it's based on basic psychology.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, look, this has been an amazing journey right up to this point. You've had all kinds of, shifts and changes from sales into contact center. Great mentors throughout the time. How have you ended? What's the last kind of segue?
That's just as crazy as the first part. So a few years ago, I was approached by a CEO of a software company, a knowledge management software, and I thought he needed help with his contact center. And I replied on LinkedIn, "Oh, I'm happy to talk with you." We get on a Zoom, and he starts talking to me about the software, and he wants me to sell software. And I was like, where do you see selling software in my LinkedIn profile? I love him. He's a great guy. And he said, "Look, just let me show you. Just 10 minutes, just let me show you. Then if you don't want to talk to me, you can hang up." I said, "Okay." So he shows me the software. I'm like, how could I be involved with Apple? I'm one of the largest companies in the world and involved with all these other companies and not seen anything what a real knowledge management system was, because it's different than a knowledge management base. And I was sold hook, line, and
Right.
sinker. So I sold software for about a year, left the company, and then did some consulting, and then went to work, got certified in knowledge management, and now I'm at Knowledgely. And I've learned a lot along the way. I've learned that
Yeah.
a lot of people don't want new knowledge management systems and they don't know the difference. So we've been trying to educate people by holding webinars on what's the difference between a base and a system. And
Right.
what's the problem that you're trying to solve? And yes, AI is involved, but it can be involved in many different ways with knowledge management systems. There's not just one type of
Absolutely.
AI that works and each company uses it the same way. They use it differently. And so
Yeah.
we've learned along the way, and we're meeting organizations where they are. And I think, I don't know, you correct me if you think you have a different opinion, but I think it's confusing out there. And people have purchased things and
Yeah.
not got the ROI, and they've got mud on their face. So now a lot of them are gun shy. They've
Oh, yeah.
purchased the wrong because they didn't do the customer journey. You got to find
Yeah.
out what problem you're trying to solve before you
Yeah.
start
It's
bringing in any kind of AI or technology.
Yeah, within 2 years, we're already in the trough of disillusion, in the cycle
That's
of
right.
any software. It's just the difference is this stuff is you can't ignore it. It's moving too fast. It's hard for even, I spend half my time with suppliers, looking at new products, evaluating companies. If you're trying to run a center, I mean, you don't have time to breathe, let alone, actually do any in-depth research. And what do they know? I mean, I didn't know about technology until I got into the software side of the business. I didn't have time. Right. I mean, when I bought a platform, it was because it did what I needed it to do. And they did the best job of selling me out of the others. So yeah, I mean, it's exceptionally confusing right now. Everybody's scared. All the fear mongering, but at the same time, it's also a lot of marketing spend, a lot of crap out there, bad advice, misadvice. That's why people that like us that have the years in this space, that have stayed tooled, to
Hmm.
this shift, that we're going through. And this is a big shift. This is the biggest shift. This is completely different than anything we've been through. But yeah, I mean, I'm with you. The market, it's, it's confusing, and there's a lot of people that are putting their jobs at risk, if they don't do it, if they don't modernize, and if they do it, but don't pick the right solutions. I mean, there's a ton of risk out there. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think I would agree with you on that 100%, Fred. Remember when the IVR came in, people,
Oh,
thought
yeah.
we were trying to advance technology. Well, the main reason the IVR came in was because as operators, we would have our agents say, "How did you hear about us?" And there was the drop down box, and they could pick the source, and that's how we would drive our marketing dollars. But then the agents weren't doing it. So then someone got a great idea that said, "Gee, why don't we have a machine out there that will ask the customer and they'll push the right button?" And we all know they push the sales button to try to get to customer service because they're blocked. They do that today. So we're trying to
Yeah.
put technology because agents, human beings, aren't doing the right thing. And now we want to fast track everything. And yet, phone, if you look at all the documentation, all the data out there, phone is still the number one channel. How can that
Yeah.
be when two things? One, companies are driving towards self service. And two, nobody wants to call the contact center. I only call when I have to,
Right.
right? I will try every type of self service so I don't have to call because it's
Yeah.
drama filled. And yet we're trying to push a square peg into a round hole without really understanding why we need the help other than save labor dollars. And I would question and challenge any any finance department, any anybody that does any kind of analytics. How do
Yeah.
you really know how much not having that is really costing you? You need to know where that gap is before you start trying to plug it, and you got to have a way to measure it.
Yeah. Yeah, and most of them don't even. I mean, they're purely just looking at the cost savings. I mean, let's be realistic. You and I know this because we're executives. The removal of a person drops more money to the bottom line than anything you
That's
can do.
right.
Period. There's no other comparison. So yeah, that's always going to be the driving factor of some executives at some level. And this goes back to, CX having a seat at the table. Part of having that seat at the table is recognizing that it requires effort, resources, talent, and spend in general. But how do you equate that back? And that's where it comes to, understanding, churn impact and, sales, cross sales, customer satisfaction. That's where all those pieces drive that revenue to then pay for it. And I mean, loyalty's gone out the window. In today's consumerized world, people just don't stick with a brand anymore, unless it's super convenient. I think the perfect example I always use is Amazon, right? I mean, Amazon, we all use it all the time because it's easy and reliable, and you don't even. I've never had to reach out to customer support, never once.
Their returns are
And
easy.
yeah, I mean, they make the experience. This is where people in our industry, I think, get a little confused. CX on the front end, the product design, the UI UX, the experience of the interaction of the product. Those are all a part of CX. They're not a part of the contact center. We just get it when everything goes to hell, right? It's that piece is just as valuable in the modern world, but the consumer is a model of building things to break down, so that you'll buy the new one within 5 years. I mean, how many garage fridges are 50 plus years old, still running, still working? You can't get a modern fridge to last longer than 5 days or 5 years, right?
Yeah.
It's just the world has shifted. So putting that focus on the CX, on the contact center, because people will still get to a human no matter what we do. I'm an AI optimist, and we're not getting rid of humans in the contact center. We're just not. Not for now. Yeah. So until we hit AGI, um, which is kind of a good segue. Let's jump into the question portion. I really appreciate your journey, by the way. I mean, absolutely love it. I'm sure a lot of people will find some inspirational, nuggets in there, and if they don't, go to the book. I mean, my God. All right. So, what keeps you up at night when it comes to our space right now? What are you worried about? What keeps you up?
Well, my shift is sort of changing. Obviously, we're in the knowledge management space, and I don't know of a KPI that touches the customer or the employee or agent, whether it's gig or employee, that isn't positively impacted by having a knowledge management system. And we're technology
Absolutely.
agnostic, so it doesn't matter to us what they have. It's just the strategy, right? But what really, if we drill down farther, and what my new platform is basically how do I help customer service leaders, CX leaders, because there is a difference, get a true seat at the table. And it's changing how they communicate within their organization and outside their organization as they network and bring in different people to their sphere of influence, but helping them do that internally. And so, I'm on the soapbox right now of helping them because I think that's the crutch. They know there's a problem.
Yeah.
They know they need
Yeah.
technology. They need to probably bring in a consultant. They know this. These are smart
Yeah.
people, right? And when you're in that chair, you're the king and queen of workarounds, right? We're subject matter expert how to work around anything. They need help. They know it, but they can't get the help they need. And people are afraid. People are losing their jobs in this industry. Fred, there's a lot of movement. So people are afraid. And look at the economy. So I think all that lends to the fact that they need to up their sphere of influence to really spread it throughout the company. For example, And once I knew I was going to need some new technology. So I called the controller of this rather large company that I worked for and said, look, I'm getting ready for budget. I know it's not out for another 6 months, but I want to get a head start. Well, you think you can help me? Well, I was trying to build relationships up with this person. So we're on
Yeah.
Zoom and I've got the spreadsheets and I'm asking questions and now they're connecting with me and they're emotionally involved with me. And I say, and at the end, after I spend my 20 minutes with them, because that's all I take is 20 minutes. Yeah, if I had any quick questions, can I contact you back? And they're like, of course, Vicki. And so back to the well, I keep going with one or two questions. Then I know I need something. I go and say, how do I do this? What's the best way? Well, now he knows my heart. He knows I'm going to push it
Yeah.
through no matter what, right? He knows how passionate I am.
Yeah.
He knows I care about people, the customer, the company, the bottom line. He's seen me in action. He's seen my videos. And he says to me, look, let's do this like at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. We'll have a beverage. Let's get online and I'm going to walk you through the best way to. And he plays golf with the C suite. I don't. I mean, I could probably drive the cart, but I don't play golf. And so that's how I got things. So he's out on the golf course saying, customer care really needs some help. She's going to put her budget together, but I think we need to get ahead of this to really save money because he's asking me what my problems are and I'm presenting them in little bite-sized bits. But that takes an enormous amount of time. And customer service leaders have fire extinguishers on their back, and we're just trying to put out fires, right?
Right.
So that's my soapbox. That's where I
Yeah.
think the crutch of the matter is. They know they have a challenge, they don't know what to do.
Yeah. Yeah, and who can blame them, right? I mean, it's not like there's any of the call center schools anymore, and even if there are some certification programs still out there that are pretty good, but they're not teaching that, which is how to broaden your network, how to develop those relationships in order to move your division's projects forward, and the nuances to it. I think it's absolutely. Um, it, yeah, it's absolutely necessary. I love that you've taken up that mantle. With your experience, of course, you've always been behind the people. And as well as I do, as anybody that's ran a center successfully, that's what it is. And all the rest, all the pretty shiny toys, all the stuff we bring in,
Right.
it still all comes down to people. I mean, always will. Um, so, how do you see the next 5 years going, in our practice, right? And I'm gonna ask you this because you live and breathe this stuff. We've been in this a long time. I actually, a lot of people mention contact centers as a vertical, I've come to the decision that it's a practice. And there's a lot of reasons, much like a doctor, a lawyer, we're vertical agnostic, right? There's contact centers in every single vertical across the world. There's a lot of different types. There's outbound, there's inbound, there's customer care, there's technical support. But there's a practice to running these, right? There's an understanding of processes and data, and sure, the technology is important, of course, especially today. But it doesn't change. So I keep calling. The only thing I can come up with is it's the contact center and customer experience practice. So what do you think? Do you agree? Have a different word or terminology use?
I think you're exactly right. I think it truly comes down to the leadership because you can get subject matter experts and everything. We know that technology is going to keep moving forward faster and faster.
Sure.
Nobody can keep up with it. You need subject matter experts. So a great leader brings those people together so that they can
Yeah.
glean the most information and make a decision. I always say I don't have to be the smartest person in the world in the room, but I need people that are smarter than me in all these different areas to feed me that
Yeah.
information, the pros, the cons, the good, the bad, the ugly. And then we develop a pilot program and then move forward. And I think with everything that's moving quickly, I think leadership becomes key and we're not needing to be managers anymore, just to manage reports, manage people. I think it's leading them down the road and utilizing the right people at the right time. I know that's basic, right? I guess I'm supposed to give you some big AI discussion, but I really think that there's so many people out there that know more about that than most customer service leaders, that our leadership is really what it's going to come down to. And that's where Jack Welch, I mean, I don't like cutting the bottom 10%, but that's sometimes the way life is. But boy, you can't argue with the inspiration that he gave those folks in GE, one of the best companies in the world at that time. and
Yeah.
people were
Yeah.
proud to work there.
Oh yeah, more people came out of that program and led Fortune 500 companies as CEOs or C-suite than any other company. I mean, if you were a GE executive, you pretty much pick your job. I mean, you can't take that away from it. I mean, again, I don't like what he did to capitalism because before that whole 80s, 90s era, I mean, people were all about the employee, and layoffs were the last result, and or the last option. And I mean, there was different. The gold watch mattered. Commitment to your employees mattered. And I see kind of a shift. The new entrepreneurs are kind of starting to recognize, until VC gets involved, but they're starting to recognize that there's a better way to do capitalism, and the Jack Welchian type of model. But you can't take away the fact that him and his organization changed the way that you can build leadership programs, leaders in general, and move a company forward, because no matter what they touch, they pretty much always were number one or number two, which was one of his guidelines to companies. If you're going to build something and you can't be one or two, you don't do it. You sell it off, or you step away. So there's a lot of that I believe in him for, and I really do respect what he did, but I don't like the impact of capitalism. But anyways, I digress. So where do you see the space though in like the next 5 years? So we're focused on leaders, but how do you see this whole process going, from your lens?
I think we have a few more years of confusion.
Yeah.
I think that it's going to be a little chaotic. I know every week I get 10 to 15 LinkedIn emails, people asking me to look at their software, the newest, latest, and greatest. There's so much out there. I think I don't have a crystal ball, but I truly believe we're going to hit the bottom at some point where people are going to just start going back to people and understanding that technology is supposed to help you do that. That's
Yeah.
where I think, that's where I hope that we're going. But I think we're in for a few years of it being pretty rough. I don't
Yeah.
think, yeah, I don't think we can keep going. It's going to go forwards or backwards. It can't stay the same. And I think it's going to go backwards a little bit with more confusion, at least for the next couple of years.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's no question, the next couple of years, there's no solve, there's no quick, I mean, I think you mentioned it earlier, there is no one AI solution for
Mhm.
everything for everybody. AGI does not exist yet. It is not going to solve the problems for you. What it can do is definitely create great outcomes when it's designed well, when it's implemented for the right reasons in the right ways. And that's when it comes down to advisors. I mean, that's why actually we're seeing an uptick in trusted advisor activity, which is absolutely right in both of our wheelhouses, right? It's people need those that have gone through these kind of transitions and understand at a lot more depth
Mhm.
what these tools really do. And to take them back off the ledge and say, look, I know you're throwing stuff against the wall right now, but a lot of this stuff ain't sticking, and there's a reason for it. And it goes back to leadership. It's the chain. Most of the projects that fail, that we're then coming back in, or people like yourself that work with us, are having to redo, is because they didn't do proper change management. They weren't ready from a data process perspective. They hadn't done any of the work. Or if they did it from, like you said earlier, a silo of IT looked at it, but didn't bring ops in, or ops looked at it, but didn't bring IT in. They certainly didn't talk to legal, and they certainly didn't talk to the data people. So I mean, there's class actions out there right now because some people decided to put up chatbots and forgot that we still have to tell people that they're being recorded for training and quality. I mean, this is a fundamental law that hasn't changed. I mean, that's been around forever. Yet because of this new shiny technology, somebody rolled it out, and in a couple of major corporations, and forgot that, oh, you have to say that, because AI is clearly recording it, right? I mean,
Absolutely.
they're recording it, transcribing it. Are they storing it properly? Yeah. So I'm with you. I think the next couple of years is going to be there's going to be a lot of shifts, and we've already seen the merger, the M&A side pretty significantly, with the big players in the industry, but we're also seeing it in the SMB. So there'll be a consolidation. Hopefully, I really hope that things kind of compress, and then stabilize, and then we're able to figure it out. And that comes with the trough of disillusion. And I mean, people have recognized that. I think the MIT report really kind of shook some people up, but they didn't read the whole report. I don't. Did you catch that report, by the way?
I've
They
started to read it. Yes.
yeah. So as you dive into it, you'll see this right away. The bait and switch of headlines, right? 93% or something. 93% of all Gen AI projects fail. But later on, they go down to say 2 out of 3 point solution projects succeed. So, it's the bait and switch is super fascinating, but it doesn't change the fact that there's a lot of the point solutions leveraging Gen AI that were not ready for the contact center, or the customer wasn't ready and they sold it to them anyways. So yeah, I think your crystal ball is pretty good. This next couple of years are going to be painful. A lot of people we both know and like will be laid off. Companies will consolidate. There will be there's going to be some challenging times. But I think when we come out on the backside, I am hoping that the customer wins. That the experience is the one thing I really like right now is we're breaking down some silos. We're working on a project where IT actually is bringing in operations. And we're literally I'm starting to see the silos are breaking down in companies, whether you want it to or not. Because this technology will impact everybody in an entire organization. I don't know if you're seeing that too.
Yeah, I'm seeing it. I'm not seeing enough of that. I'm seeing, like I said before,
Right.
people struggling with trying to bring everybody together. The other piece is when you talk about advisors, is I can't tell you how many customer service leaders say to me, well, the salesperson said X. Well, the salesperson's never run a center. They're selling you feature benefits. It sounds great, but then when you try to put it into play in your process, in your customer journey, it's not working and it's not doing what you want it to do. And that's another feature. And that may be another year, or we'll charge you for it. And then they start nickel and diming you. So
Yeah.
and I don't. I will say this even from experience, and I manage thousands of people. It's You're knee deep in alligators every single day. You don't have time to pull back and look objectively and not worry about your day-to-day operations. I don't care. I had 5 layers between me and the front lines. And I
Yeah.
guess, but I was on the ground every single day. It is literally, they don't have the time, don't have the know-how. They just have to bring in the right people, build their team basically. And that's IT and it's marketing, it's legal, it's all of those, right? HR. Everybody needs to be involved so it becomes a company initiative. And then
Yep.
then you do some great change management. And then, man, you are successful at doing it and you're going to be able to measure the positive ROI on that. If you just listen to the salesperson and giving you feature and benefit, it sounds great. When I
Oh yeah.
ask questions on a knowledge management system, and I have a big list, the first 15 minutes they're going around their demo and I'm thinking, God, this is the greatest thing since sliced bread. But then I start asking the questions, right? And then it's, well, no, not really. Well, that's another enhancement down the road. And I'm thinking that won't work for my client. They need that
Yeah.
particular thing right now.
Yeah.
So I think that trusted advisor is extremely important.
Yeah. But just like the technology side, though, the trusted advisors, you need to be aware that not all are created equal, obviously. There are people like yourself and, a lot of people I know and talk to who know this stuff, right? They know what they're doing. They know the pitfalls because they've been through it with other clients, with themselves. They understand how to separate this and look at the information in an unbiased manner. There are a lot of people out there too that just, they're former salespeople that just don't have a clue. So again, it adds to a little bit of a confusion right now to customers, but I mean, it's not hard to figure out pretty quickly whether someone knows what they're doing or not.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I'm with you. I think that'll continue to grow. It has to. There's too much, too fast, for any leader to really take on. They can't possibly do this. You need to bring in trusted advisors like yourself. So for the audience, for those people that are coming up in this space right now, if you had a couple words of advice, even maybe for yourself when you were younger, but I mean, let's talk about right now. I mean, my younger self, other than investing in Bitcoin when I found out it was at $5 or stuff like that. Let's talk about right now. If you were going to tell somebody just getting into the contact center space, something, what advice would you give them?
I would tell them to build their network. That's something I did not do till probably 10 years ago, where my son is like the master networker. Um, I would say build your network, go to industry events, go outside your company, build relationships inside your company. Um, I think that's one of the most important things that I would tell my younger self. So that way I have a team of people that I can go to when I don't know what to do, that are not necessarily in my company, but outside my company as well, that I can go to and get some advice from. Because nobody becomes successful, Fred, you know this, without somebody helping them. Whether it's a team of people or a mentor or something, it's critical. That's what I would tell myself, is the network is where it's at, building my career and spending time with people.
And it will always be people,
Yeah, it will
with
always be.
even with AI. I mean, especially with AI, I think there's a lot of people that really believe, and I'm in this camp, that as we continue to move forward, the in-person stuff is going to become more and more valuable. And I think it naturally has to. Humans, we crave that. We need that. We're social creatures. I mean, but we're social to a certain guideline. There's like did you know that the average human can only really know 150 people? Because that was roughly the size of the village, right? So when it's anyways, so you go down the human psychology path, which I know you do. It's super fascinating, but I think there's going to be a double click over the next 5 years of in-person relationships, and that ain't going to change. When I talk to hiring
Mhm.
managers, they put out a job ad, they get 1,000 applications, 1,000 plus. I mean, yeah. So if you think about where this world is moving, if you don't have those relationships to at least help you show you the door,
Mhm.
maybe they won't open the door for you, but they'll show you the door. You got to build those relationships
Yeah.
that can get you in and have those conversations. If you don't, you're going to be one of the 1,000 resumes, and you have to hope that you meet the AI algorithms requirements to get in front of the hiring manager.
And that's another
So,
broken system for another whole podcast, right? Oh,
oh my
geez.
God.
We won't even
I've
go down
never
that road
really
now.
yeah, let's not go down that road. I really try to avoid that side, because I mean, that's a messed up system and it impacts so many people. Um, all right. So, final question. If you could pick anybody, in the practice of contact centers, that has a great journey to come on, contact center journeys, who would it be? One, two.
Luke Jameson, he's over,
Okay.
yeah, he's fantastic. He's done some great things. He presents extremely well. I'm actually going to meet him in person. He'll be in Phoenix,
Okay.
going to SOCAP next month, actually, and then we'll both be at
Nice.
ICMI in Florida as well. And I'm looking forward to meeting him. He's a great personality, knows his stuff. He's a master networker. He really is.
Well, you want to, let him know that contact center journeys would definitely love to talk to him. I'd be more than happy. Anybody coming from you, Vicky? I mean, we've known each other for quite a while
Yeah.
now. I trust and respect anybody that you say would have be a great guest. So,
Yeah.
I've really appreciated it. Any final words? Anything you want to wrap up on?
Yeah. No, I want to thank you very much and really say that we'll get through this. We absolutely will.
Yeah.
Just like we've gotten through other challenges in our industry. Just keep networking, talking to people, bring in trusted advisors to try to get rid of all of the noise so that you can make the right decisions.
Yeah. And just remember, on that same vein, we are the industry that pivoted within weeks to
That's
COVID.
right.
Um,
Bringing people
I
home.
mean,
That's exactly right.
Yeah, we may not have got it all right, but we had people back up and working. Even if we were doing telephony ringbacks that were costing the company a fortune, we still figured out how to do it. So if we could solve that problem, we can do anything. So I
Absolutely.
really appreciate, always love our conversations. And yeah, for all the audience, again, subscribe, follow us, connect with Vicki on LinkedIn. I guarantee you can find her. And we appreciate you watching.